Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and change makers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I'm your host, Patty Dayleg, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What We Made Possible. This is a podcast where we explore the ripple effects of healing and how we show up in relationship and how when we do that, that shapes what becomes possible for our communities. It's been a little bit since I have recorded a solo episode, so I'm excited to be here with you all. And there's a reason why I haven't done a solo episode in a little bit. I've been basically in school. So you might all know that I have been a coach for almost a decade now. I did my first certification program in 2017. So 9 years ago, which is wild. And since then, I've been working with folks one-on-one, and I started facilitating. I started doing workshops with folks. But I've been noticing a pattern in the coaching work that's coming to me and in the coaching work that I am seeking out. And it's that people are bringing questions that are not just individual, right? They're relational. So they're questions about how we navigate change as a team, how we make decisions together, how we stay connected, and how we stay in our purpose when circumstances are shifting. So yeah, I've been deepening my practice in systems coaching, which is different. It's different from one-on-one. It's a way of supporting people in their relationships. So I might be coaching a family, a team, a partnership, an organization, a coalition, right? So I've been doing this for a little bit, but this methodology is super fascinating because it is about the relationship between. So if you can imagine, like if you and I were holding a string, like two ends of a string, the relationship between us is symbolized by that string, right? And if I pull it, then you feel the pull. And if you pull it, then I feel it, right? There's an interaction between us. There's a connection between us. And so in systems coaching, that's actually what I'm coaching. I'm coaching the relationship. And so I want to share just a few examples of what I'm learning through the people that I have been working with recently. And some of these are just like opening the relationship conversations, kind of like coming into coaching together, the discovery process. Again, because I am in school. I feel like I'm in graduate school with the rigor of this program. And I really appreciate it because it's different. It really is different. So I want to give an example of what I mean from my certification course. So the program that I'm doing is with the Center for Right Relationships, and the coaching is called Organizational Relationship Systems Coaching, ORSC coaching. And so this is going to illustrate what it means, right, to be a coach to a system versus an individual. So let me give you an example. This is from my school itself. So the example is an engineering firm. So imagine that they're building cars, right? And there are challenges. Teams are siloed, right? The folks who are designing, let's say, the body of the car are different than the ones doing the electric stuff within the car, and those who are doing the motor, right? These are all different people. And so let's say that you work with one engineer who says that whenever there's a problem and she tries to solve it, another one just pops up and she's back to square one. So in a one-on-one coaching program, I would work with this engineer to look at how she approaches problem solving, how she communicates with colleagues, how she manages frustration. And then, of course, being a coach, right? It's all about action. What actions can she take to move the issue forward? But that's only looking at one part of the bigger puzzle. So as a systems coach, now I get to look at all the different interactions and see that actually, in this example, when let's say the body designers are fixing one thing about the shape of the hood, let's say, it's creating a problem for the team that is putting together the motor because now they can't fit a part of the motor. So then they do something, right? The motor team now like creates a fix. And now that's messing with the electronics team, right? So in this system, in this example, everyone is partly right. Everyone is like trying to solve the problem, right? But if I was coaching the whole team, then I get to see the higher view. I get to see the relationships, the interactions with the team versus just one person within it. Like, yes, if one person within that whole system is able to, approach problem solving differently, is able to communicate better with her colleagues, can manage her frustration, then like probably there's going to be action forward because if you're influencing one part of the system, you're also influencing the whole system. But this is just a different approach and a different viewpoint. It's literally a different perspective. It's so cool, right? So, like I said, I've been a coach for almost a decade and I've facilitated and helped to do like strategic planning for organizations. I have helped folks really find like rest and nourishment within their orgs. And this work is giving me a whole new language and perspective on groups and how we are together in our day-to-day. Right? So let me tell you about the things that people are coming to me for. So one person who I previously coached one-on-one is navigating a layoff. So of course, there's professional and practical stuff that goes with that transition, right? What do I do now? What direction makes sense? What possibilities are opening? What possibilities are closing? Do I even want to stay in this work? Do I want to push to stay at this organization, right? At the same time, right, there's all this all this stuff is happening for this one person. And at the same time, the transition is affecting more than one person, right? It's impacting their family, right? Household rhythms are shifting, financial decisions are shifting, decisions that might have once been made individually, might want to make them together now. So part of the coaching space is, yes, supporting her and how she wants to navigate this moment in her career, but also how the whole family wants to navigate this moment together, right? The people who she loves, right? How can we make decisions together? How do we want to communicate with each other? How do we want to support each other as our circumstances change, right? So this couches career navigation, the question of like, what do I do in a layoff, with the bigger picture. It becomes a question about who do we want to be as a family during this time of transition, which like, honestly, whenever I've heard people and leaders talk about layoffs, they always say, it's not just the person, you're impacting the whole family. And that was the case for me in my own layoff, right? Like my partner was like, oh, if you need time, like I can go do DoorDash for a little bit, and that impacts how my partner shows up to the relationship. It impacts like how we spend money, all of that. Luckily, he didn't need to, and I was able to kind of find my footing in my coaching work pretty quickly. But still, it was like a thing to navigate, right? And that's a thing for people to navigate generally. It's not just the one person being impacted, especially for the folks who I work with, right? Folks of color, daughters of immigrants. We live in intergenerational families. Many of us live with other people, with our parents, with our partners, with our children, with our elderly family who we are also taking care of, right? Like all of these things are part of the picture when one person is impacted in their career. And so it's a different perspective and a different locus of who are we coaching? Who is navigating this thing? I'm not just talking to the one person, I'm talking to the family, right? So another example is a team that is serving immigrant communities in New York City. They're part of a city agency, and they're experiencing a lot of pressure and uncertainty at the moment. The work they do is meaningful. It carries a ton of emotional weight. Part of the reason why they invited me to come in and work with them is that there's secondary trauma that comes from being close to communities who are being under threat, right? And so the team, the leaders of the team is like, they're asking, how can we stay connected to our purpose while also like sustaining ourselves as human beings in this work, right? Like, how can we get grounded? How can we reconnect back to like why we're here so that we can stay in it more sustainably? How do we do that individually, and how do we do that collectively, right? So in this space, we are exploring questions like, what keeps us connected to the purpose of our work? How do we support one another as colleagues? And what helps us stay resourced so that the work can continue over time? So these are questions that live within the relationships of the team, right? The strengths of those relationships shapes what is possible for the work itself. So the thing that I am learning here is because, I've been facilitating, and there's like, as a coach and as a facilitator, I've experienced and led processes where we are kind of connecting to our purpose, or reconnecting to our whys, right? That's a big part of the work that I do, is like being reconnected and grounded. But the other thing that I'm kind of learning here is that when you are doing that, it's not just the individual process or like the thing that you want to do. There's not just the but like the goal that you're working with around, for example, for this group, connecting to our why. There's also this whole bigger other context that is shaping the interactions of the team in this room. And so there's the questions of like, what keeps us connected to the purpose of our work, but also there's questions that I am super souped to ask, which is like, how does this impact you right now as a team? And what's happening in this space, in this room as we speak? Like, what is here right now in terms of how we're connected to each other? So I've done sessions before on connecting to the purpose of our work and connecting to our why, especially in the context of things like fundraising, so that, we can share our stories. And it's a lot of storytelling, right? It's a lot of connecting to our stories so that we can share them. For this team, it's not storytelling for another purpose. It is connecting them to each other in the moment and in the container that we are creating on that day. So it takes a lot of the one-on-one magic of coaching, which is responsive to what's in the room, right? If I'm talking to someone and all of a sudden I can hear their energy shift, like I can hear excitement in their voice, and then they kind of like slow down and then they kind of sigh, right? Those are energetic shifts that you, like, as a coach, I'm very attuned to. And that is really good data that tells me like, oh, something is there for this person. And that's like something that we can kind of unpack. That also happens for groups. Those kind of like dynamics are so live, right? And so this is part storytelling and part like connecting to the purpose and part like a positivity and reconnecting to purpose, but it's also bringing the team closer together. Like, when they share these stories about like why they're here, what keeps them in the work, it actually shapes what becomes possible for the work itself. It's fascinating. It's super exciting to get to support a team in this way. And, I'll report back. Okay, so the last kind of example that I want to give is with an organization that formed in response to a political moment. So they were kind of emergency response. And, in that moment when everything is urgent, like you have a ton of clarity around what you're supposed to be doing, right? People come together quickly because there's like an immediate need. So now it's months, years later, and the org is asking itself new questions. The urgency is still present, but the context has evolved. So they're reflecting on who they are now, what their role is, how they want to organize themselves moving forward. I saw this a lot with organizations that did a lot of COVID response, right? Like organized communities, shared a ton of resources during COVID. And like once the funding dried up and once like, it was less of a thing in the news, even though there's, COVID is still kind of ongoing. Anyway, a lot of organizations are asking themselves, right, like, who are we now? And this is, yes, it's strategic, right? Like an organization could go straight into like a strategic planning process, but it's also relational. It's about identity. It's political, right? Like, what are we here to do together? How do we want to structure ourselves? How do we want to contribute in a meaningful way? So the thing that I'm learning with them is, again, like the difference between process and like relational. Like that is really the thing that is key here. Because in our movements, like in the work that we're doing, like, we don't want to replicate the harm of the systems that we are trying to undo, right? And so like how do we want to be together? How do we want to treat each other? How do we want to be in community with each other? How do we want to relate? What's our collective identity? Yeah, I mean, across all these examples, the common thread is that the challenge does not live in one individual alone. The questions live really in relationships. So, I named a lot of them, but like, how do we want to navigate change together? How do we want to make decisions together? How do we want to stay connected to our purpose together? And when people are supported in exploring these questions together, something shifts. Even like being in the question together shifts versus like having an individual kind of conversation or individual reflections. There's more clarity, there's more alignment, there's more capacity to move forward in a way that reflects what matters to them. And so systems coaching really recognizes the ways that we show up in relationship. And again, how when we do that, it impacts what we're able to do in the world. And this connects really deeply with what we explore here on What We Made Possible. It connects deeply with the work that I've already been doing. So I'm really excited about getting to add this layer of depth to the work. Healing is not just individual, right? Like leadership is not only individual. And change really happens together. It happens in relationship and families and teams and movements. So yeah, I'm super excited to create this space to allow folks to reflect together and like listen to one another, to be in conflict with one another, to make intentional choices together, and really strengthen our relationship so that we can allow meaningful change to happen and make it happen. So if you heard this and you're like, ooh, like I have a problem, but it's not just me. Like, and it's not me. I'm not the problem. And it's not something I can blame on one person, right? Like it's not just like an individual thing. There's a challenge that you're navigating that is something that you're navigating with someone, right? If you're navigating a transition that affects more than just you, whether that is a shift with your family, with your team, your partnership, your board, systems coaching offers a space to think together about how you want to move forward. And I have capacity for a few systems, relationship systems to come on. So if you're listening to this and you're like, ooh, I think I need to explore this, then there's a link in the show notes to book a call with me. There's a team coaching discovery call link. And yeah, we can set up some time, we can chat and see what's possible for you and your system. And if there's someone else in your life who you're like, oh, you need this, then please pass this on. I'm so excited to bring this to our communities. The other thing that I'll say is that I'm in a cohort of, it was originally intended for like folks of color only, BIPOC only, and it shifted, but everyone in the room is working towards some world work, is what they call it. So it's a vast majority folks of color in the room. A lot of us are working in public service, as opposed to some of the courses that I took with this organization. There's a lot of corporate folks. And, I never worked in corporate. Like, I worked in government and nonprofit and kind of like mission forward folks all my career. And that's who's in this space. Most of the resources that are related to systems coaching are going towards corporate spaces. And like, that's just the reality. That's just the reality of coaching in general. And so I see my role as bringing these resources where they're not afforded necessarily. And so I like to work with organizations within their budget. I also like to work with funders who gather their grantees as collaboratives, as coalitions, and who are gathering folks to be in relationship. So this work is so important, and I think that everyone deserves access to it. So if you want to explore what that could look like together, please look at the show notes and book a call with me. I'm excited to make something possible together. Thanks, y'all, for listening. Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps, and so I invite you to do something, which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.